I'm Owen, and welcome to Breaking Pad Locks, a mini course all about the art of lockpicking and cybersecurity. You might say, how are these related? They're completely different. Well, they're both mechanisms that we use to keep ourselves safe, whether it be in the real world or in the cyber world. And an understanding of these things is incredibly important because in our day-to-day lives, we use encryption methods and we use locks countless times, but we never think about them. We just assume that they work, and we never try to ask ourselves, why do they work? And also, when don't they work? This course is all about discussing these flaws that make them break, that make hacks possible and make lockpicking possible, and understanding how these flaws can be improved upon to build a better system as a whole. So over this course, I'll be talking about the art of lockpicking, how we break into locks, how locks work, stuff like this master number 3, for example, which is a lock that you see every day, but by exploiting the flaws in it, we can get into it pretty easily and pop it open without the key. And this is a huge problem because in a world where we assume locks work and they actually don't work as much as we think, we need to be aware of these possible security flaws. And this is even more important when we're talking about similar things, but like cyber locks. So we're talking about encryption, we're talking about different methods that keep your data, your photos, everything to do with your life safe. And as time goes on, we're becoming more and more involved in storing data online. And if that lock that keeps that safe doesn't work, everything you have will be lost, and everything you have will be stolen. So we believe it's important to discuss these things, to understand how these systems work, so that you, the learner, can better understand how their data is protected, how their lives are protected, and have a little fun by picking locks and breaking encryption and becoming interested in the field as a whole, so that you too can help beat these flaws and make them even better and improve upon the systems that we use today. Now, the first lock we're going to examine, just to show you broadly how this works, is the master number 3. And this is a common lock. You've definitely seen this before, locking doors shut, locking cabinets shut, on whatever. And there's a few different ways that you can break into these locks pretty simply. So these lock picks I got from Sparrow's lock picks. This is a rake, and the concept is this is a very low effort pick, but just by inserting this, you can jostle the pins around and open the lock. You see, it's as simple as that. The bonus of a rake is it's very easy to use. Anyone can use a rake to open a lock. So a lock like this, master number 3, it really doesn't keep your things that safe. It's the illusion of security. It looks very hard to open. You can't open it with your hands, but with this simple wave rake and this simple tool, a tension wrench, we can pop it open. We're going to be looking at flaws like that all throughout this course, because if we really think about it, this lock, it looks secure. You can't see the mechanisms behind it, but by understanding the mechanisms behind it, it took only a matter of seconds to get it open. So whatever we were storing behind this door that was locked shut with this secure looking piece of steel, it's not secure anymore. And the same thing can happen when we're talking about cybersecurity or even talking about more advanced locks. Everything has flaws, and that's the number one premise of this course. All these systems, they rely upon a hidden mechanism that is secure when you don't understand it, but if you understand how it works, you can understand how to exploit it. So, some of the lessons that this course is going to go over. We're going to be going through the art of lock picking, which we'll do a little bit more of a demo after this, and we'll be going over how you use these picks, what types of picks you use in which situations, how you rake locks in more depth, talking about different security pins, talking about how we can take apart locks, how we can change the pins to make them more difficult, and why different pin shapes inside a lock are more difficult to pick. We're going to be doing some ratings on more technical sides of this and just trying to understand everything about a lock. And then once we've kind of gone into lock picking and we understand that fully, we're going to be transitioning to cryptography, and we're going to be talking about the importance of cybersecurity and some historic hacks. We're going to be learning about how security on computers and on phones actually works and how these systems interact while being secure. We're going to be talking about some simple Caesar ciphers and some different early like encryption methods. Then we're going to be talking about how that kind of evolves as computers get more complicated, and how a lot of these complicated security methods allow ourselves to exist in the modern world without having to think about so many things like, oh, am I currently being hacked? Is my data being hacked right now? Well, we're going to be talking about how we know that we're not currently being hacked and how to know when we actually are. And then we're going to be doing a little mini unit about how to do some rudimentary coding so that we can actually do some demos on how encryption works with computers so that we can write some code of our own to just show off some of how this works. And at the end, we'll be kind of talking about wrapping it up. We're doing some final lock picking, doing some encryption and decryption, and just kind of capping off what we've learned over the course. And now I'm just going to show you a bit about how to single pin pick a lock and kind of the methods behind locks. Now here in this diagram, you can see the internal workings of a lock, and I'll just go over briefly what the mechanism inside is. So here you have the body of the lock, and this is the keyway with 2 pins inside of it, as you can see. And this is as if we're taking a cross section of the lock, just slicing it through this way. And what we're looking at here is we're saying, okay, the way that you open a lock is when the pin, the top pin, has been pushed above this shear line so that the body of the lock is able to turn. Normally, when the lock's at rest, this pin will have fallen down to here and will prevent the body of the lock from actually being able to turn. So when you put in a key, it pushes all of these pins up so that the space between them, it's sheared right between them, and you can turn the lock. What we try to do with lock picking is we put tension on it so that this is being turned as far as it can so that all of these pins are being pressed up against the wall of the lock. And since you can't perfectly manufacture pins that are exactly the same size, one of them will begin to bind first because its diameter will be slightly longer. So when we have a pin that's binding and being pressed up against, stuck in between here, right where my finger is, we're able to use a pick kind of like this and just press up gently against here until we just hit that shear line, and the lock will make a distinctive little click, and that means that this pin has moved up and this is turned just a tiny bit more. Now the next pin will be stuck, and once you can slowly push up each of those pins right to that shear line, so it's not too far that this is again above the shear line or that this is below the shear line, just so that the exact right height, and then it'll click into place and the lock will turn a little bit. So I'm going to give a little demo of single pin picking, which is what we're talking about right here when you use a pick just to push each pin up one by one into place. And that's going to be what we're examining in this first half of the course. We're going to be examining how locks work and how we can pick them. And then once we have a good understanding of that, we'll be talking about how digital security works and how we can make that better and how we can break into that. Now, on this ABIS lock, I'm going to be demonstrating this concept of single pin picking, which is when you use a pick like this to push each pin up one at a time inside the lock. And we're going to be looking for the one that has the most tension on it, because it's the one that has the biggest diameter, and it's being pressed against the inside of the lock. And we press up, and you hear a nice little click. Then I'm going to move through one by one, see if any other pins have a little bit of tension. Oh, we got another click. Can we find anything else? You'll notice we're using a different style of tension wrench on this one. This is top of the keyway, and we just pushed all the pins into the place because you heard that final little click, and now it's turning, and boom, we have it open. You can see this lock has some tougher pins than that master number 3. It'd be a little harder to pick with a rake, but we were able to, by understanding how the pins on the inside work, use this tension wrench, which is a little hard to pick up, I'm sorry about this. Well, we're using this pick and this tension wrench. I'm sorry, I was struggling to pick it up before off the surface, it's pretty flat, but we're able to use these two to break into lock, and that same concept works on all locks that use pins like this. And over the course, we'll be going into more technique-based things on how I did that, and looking more into some clear and cutaway locks about how these pins operate, different types of pins, and different tricks that people use to actually get into these locks. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you all have a great day.